I'm Rabbi Susman. I'm here to present to you about the holiday of Passover, in Hebrew known as Pesach. The holiday is a celebration of our freedom from the rule of the evil Pharaoh in Egypt, and the whole book of Exodus covers it. So if you have time, we'll go through that verse by verse. No, just in short, the Jews moved to Egypt, Jacob with his 12 sons, and they lived in peace. Joseph was the viceroy to Pharaoh. After Joseph passed away and that Pharaoh passed away, a new Pharaoh came into power, decided the Jews are too much involved in the community, we don't like them, and let's enslave them. Put them into slavery, and for around 200 years they were in slavery. Backbreaking work, priority was to build all the pyramids in Egypt that are still there today, were built through the slavery. One of the decrees he had was to kill all Jewish boys because his stargazer saw that, you know, a Jewish boy would be born and come up as the leader, and also the Jewish people, in his opinion, were multiplying too quickly to keep control of. There was one little boy that didn't get killed. He was born prematurely, 3 months early, and that was Moses. His mother hid him for 3 months, and then after he got too big to hide, his mother put him into a waterproof bassinet, so to speak, and put him into the Nile, hoping he'd float to safety. Pharaoh's daughter found him while she was bathing in the Nile, saw a little baby, didn't know who it belonged to, and went to one of the Jewish wet nurses and asked, could you find someone to nurse this baby? They knew who the baby was, brought the baby back to his mother, Yocheved was her name, and she took care of him, and she took care of sustaining him, and Pharaoh's daughter brought him into the palace. Moses, as we know, grew up to be the leader of the Jewish people. He revolted against Pharaoh, ran away, went into the desert, where God revealed himself to him, became the spokesperson of the Jewish people, and helped redeem us. The beginning of those redemptions was Moses came to Pharaoh and asked him to let the Jewish people go. He said no, and God sent 10 plagues, starting with blood, and the last one ended with death of the firstborns. Not until death of the firstborns came did Pharaoh decide to let the Jewish people go, because he himself was a firstborn, and he was afraid, well, all the firstborns are dying. It's serious this time. And he decided to let the Jewish people go, and we packed our bags and fled before Pharaoh could change his mind for the 10th time. So now that we fled with only what we could carry. And one of the things we were carrying was food, dough on our back. And that dough got baked from the hot desert sun, and we eat matzah nowadays to resemble the dough that we fled with on our back. Let's talk about matzah now. So we'll go into the Seder right now, in the celebratory part of Passover, now that I gave you a very brief and quick history of what led up to the whole Passover holiday. We go into the Seder. Seder in Hebrew means an order. The Seder is also our festive dinner meal that we eat on the first 2 nights of Passover. There's numerous things that consist of this Passover Seder. First one is matzah. Are we all familiar with what matzah is? Matzah, for lack of better terms, is a large, round flatbread. Its ingredients, very complex, so pay attention. Flour and water. Did we all get that? Matzah is made of only flour and water, and it has to be made in a very rapid process. From the time the flour and water are mixed, it has to be kneaded, rolled out, and the completion of the baking has to be done in less than 18 minutes. 18 minutes or less. One of the prohibitions of Passover is you shouldn't have any leavened bread or leavened products. And it takes that amount of time for the dough to start fermenting and rising, 18 minutes. So if it's not done in less than 18 minutes, it's not matzah. It's like a gyro, I guess. What does matzah symbolize to the Jewish people? Well, let's look at bread. Bread is fluffy and everything, and yeasty and nice. Bread resembles arrogance. It's all puffy. Matzah is flat, leavened. It resembles humility. matzah resembles other things. It's also called poor man's bread. Flour and water. Doesn't really have a taste. If you taste the cardboard, maybe it's similar, but that's not that bad. But it's basically like a large round cracker, and that's what it is. It's known as the bread of affliction, poor man's bread, bread of faith, bread of healing. Because of all the things that led up to this matzah, we were afflicted, we were wounded, we were really poor, we had nothing on our backs when we left. And by eating the matzah, we connect spiritually to the hardships that we've gone through and we relive it, and it brings us back to a sense of humility. We can now begin to understand what it means to be humble. Also, one of the fun parts of the Seder is we get to drink 4 cups of wine throughout the Seder. Each of the 4 cups also have a resemblance and a name for them. The first cup, it means I will take you out. One of the verses is God promised to take the Jews out, and the first cup is I will take you out. The second cup is God promised to save us. I will save you, says the verse. The third cup means I will redeem you. Not only did he save us, but he redeemed us from it. And the fourth cup resembles I will take you to my nation. I will take you as my nation. So we'll get back to the 4 cups soon. Now, as we said, the Seder is the order, and we have a Seder plate. So I don't have a Seder plate here, but I'm not an artist, but I'll try to be one. And I'll make the Seder plate. Here's the plate, and there's 6 items that go on the Seder plate. It's not a smiley face, and these are little trays. Now, there are some Seder plates that look like this. Both are correct. It's just different customs. Well, a bit more circular, but now on the Seder plate, we have what we call the zroa, a shank bone. The shank bone is a chicken bone, either from the neck bone or a leg bone or something from the chicken, and we broil it and take all meat off of it. This is not eaten, but this is a resemblance of the Passover offering that the Jews brought up to God during the redemption of Egypt. So that goes over here. We'll call it the Zeroa shank bone. The next one is an egg. We put an egg on the Seder plate. That also has a resemblance. The egg resembles the festival offering that we bring up for all festivals. There's the Passover offering specifically for Passover, and then the egg for a festival offering. The next one is called murr. This is the fun one, delicious. It's grated horseradish root. So, murr, my handwriting, did you catch it on the camera? No. So it doesn't count. The murr is horseradish root. We call it bitter herbs. This is a resemblance to remind us of the bitterness that we went through in Egypt. You eat it, it brings tears to the eyes. I'm not lying. And it doesn't let us forget where we came from. The next one is called charoset. This is like a dip, so to speak. It's a sweet dip. It's made from nuts, pears, apples, and wine mixed together. And it's a bit pasty. There's 2 resemblances to it. It's bittersweet. The charoset resembles the mortar that the Jewish people had to make the bricks, and also so that's the mortar part. The sweet part is that we were redeemed, so it's a sweet thing. One of the reasons we use wine is the blood that went into it. If the Jewish people didn't fill their quota of making enough bricks, the Egyptians would take Jewish infants and stuff them in the walls to fill that quota. So we have the charoset. I don't think there's a translation for it. We'll call it sweet dip. It's quiet in here. And I'm going to explain where these all fall in. But right now I'm just giving you an introduction. The next one is called karpas. Karpas, I'll call it the appetizer. It's just a vegetable, it's an onion, a potato, or something, and later on we'll use it in the Seder for part of the order. And last but not least, we have chazeret. It's also a bitter herb. We take the romaine lettuce, and the stalk, the white part of the romaine lettuce, isn't so tasty. It's usually the part that we don't eat. That's also bitter. And once again, it reminds us of the bitterness that we went through to lead up to this freedom. So, more bitter. And this is called chazeret. I don't think any of you could read it. So we got the matzah down, we got the wine down, and we got the 6 items on the Seder plate. Now we have 15 steps of the Seder. Some are long, some are short, some are more symbolic than others. But here's the fun part. And I decided to take a more mystical concept to explaining it to you. A very interesting insight of how we could also relate to today's day and age with where we are with the Seder. The first step in Hebrew is called Kadesh. Kadesh means holy, to sanctify. In this part, we pour the first cup of wine. Just to note, at the Seder meal, we consider ourselves royalty. We're freed, we're now royal. And a king or a queen or someone of royalty doesn't pour their own wine. So we usually have the person next to us pouring and we trade off, just to resemble the royalty that we're experiencing today. Well, Monday night. So what does Kaddish mean? I said sanctify. Let's go a bit deeper. All journeys have a beginning. When you go from one place to another, you separate yourself from that place to go to the next place. You got to go somewhere. You got to leave somewhere to go somewhere. Well, we started on a journey, both physically and spiritually. We didn't listen to Pharaoh. Pharaoh ignored us. We ignored what Pharaoh said. If we told Pharaoh we're leaving, he'd mock us and say, "Why are you going on such a journey?" and beat us down. We decided to ignore him, and then we just got up and walked out or ran. But in order to explain what Kaddish, sanctify, means, we have to first understand the other word of what Kaddish could also mean, and the other English translation could have. It can mean transcend. We have to transcend the mundane world, our day-to-day, our going to work, our going shopping, and we have to separate it. And once we're able to separate ourselves from the mundane and the day-to-day, then only then are we able to set apart and sanctify this day. And this is where the true spiritual freedom begins. And we're able to introduce ourselves and go to a level and grow higher and higher. So Kadesh means to transcend, separate, and then we're able to sanctify and go from one level to the next. Step number 2. Hebrew is called orchatz. English, I'm going to use the term cleanse. In this stage, we wash our hands. Not with soap and water. It's a ritual, spiritual washing. And we wash with a cup 3 times on each hand, starting with the right 3 times, and then 3 times on the left. Why do we do this? What's the symbolism behind this? Well, our hands are the tools that we work with and use every day. Our hands, show our emotions. Our emotions are love, fear, compassion. Fear, you can push someone away. Love and compassion, you hug. We're using our hands for it. The urge to win, the urge to be appreciated. As I'm expressing myself with my hands, I just realized. We express ourselves to dominate. And our emotions also reflect our mental state. So we're using our hands, which do our everyday toil, physical, to reflect our mental state. But sometimes our emotions and our mind don't connect. We let our emotions get the better of us. And we don't think with a straight mind. It could be an emotional love, it could be an emotional fear. But we don't let ourselves connect our mind to our heart. So as we know, water has many attributes to it. Water is one of the strongest things known to men, but it's also one of the softest. Water has a healing power. Wisdom, flowing water is compared to flowing water. So until we get this water and pour it on ourselves, we're not able to break away from the day-to-day. So the pouring the water reminds us that the flowing water brings wisdom and healing, and just relax and put everything in perspective. Step number 3. Only 12 more to go after this. Step number 3 is the appetizer. That's the karpas over here. We take whatever vegetable we use. Main people in America, most people use an onion or potato nowadays. Why? It's just preference. But we take this vegetable and we say a blessing on it before we eat any food, and we dip it in salt water. And as we dip it in salt water and we eat it. The reason for this is we need to retaste the labor of Egypt. It's not something that happened 3,300 years ago. It's something that happens every day in all parts of the world. So we have to remind ourselves of, even though this is a joyous occasion, we have to remind ourselves of the bitterness to understand the joy and happiness we have through it. And also we get to eat. It's been dragging on a little bit and we just get the appetizer. Next part is the matzahs on the Seder table. And I forgot to mention we have 3 matzahs. We have one representing the priestly tribe, known as the Kohanim. Then we have the second one as a semi-priestly tribe, the Levites that serve the priests. And then we have the third one that resembles the Israelites, all of Israel. So we take the middle matzah and we break it in half. The deeper meaning to breaking it in half, we break it in half and then we put it away. Some people hide it and make a game for the kids to find it later and they get a prize, to keep the children involved. This is all about family time. But we break it away and hide it. Why do we break it? Because some of us live great lives, but there's a lot of people that are broken. This world is filled with broken people. And we have to remember, and we have to ask ourselves, why did God make a world that's so imperfect, that's so filled with broken people and crumbled people? And the answer is, this bottle could hold 16.9 ounces of water. But if there was a hold of it, infinite water would flow through it. I'd fill it up and it would never stop. We have to take the whole and the broken to be able to make this infinite world, that everything that we could all learn from each other and everything can flow from each other. So we break it as a resemblance. One is of the broken spirit, but broken could also be good, that if something's broken, we could have infinite flowing through it. As long as we feel there's no room to grow, we'll never grow. But if we break down a little bit and lower ourselves to a broken level, so to speak, we'll realize that none of us are perfect and none of us do lead perfect lives. We'll always have room to grow. Step number 5, we fill the second cup of wine and we're going to drink it at the end of this stage. Now at this stage, we start getting a bit tipsy. If only I would have brought wine to demonstrate. Do you guys know how to drink wine? Should I get a bottle to show you? No? Okay. So this step is called Magid. It's the telling of the story. We go over the story of how we were enslaved, why we were enslaved, and we start telling the story. Main part of Passover is that we're reminded we have to tell it to our children. We have to instill Passover into our children's hearts. We have to carry it on because it's something that has to. So it's a whole family event. We bring the children in it and we break it down, so to speak, in King Solomon's wisdom, so that the wise get their understanding and the children get their understanding as well. Also, when we tell the story, we hear things is one thing, but when someone tells it over, you realize the reality. When we tell about the hardships that the Jewish people went through in Egypt, it brings back, we're able to relate with it in today's day and age. And it doesn't let us forget. Step 7 and 8 go together. Excuse me. 7 is called bread, and 8 is called matzah. They go hand in hand. Because they're both made from flour and water. But bread is also known in Hebrew. The word for bread could also be translated as sustenance. So bread, sustenance, and matzah. Matzah, as we said, has many names. Bread of faith is one of them that we said, and bread of healing is another one, and a few others. But we're bread of faith and bread of healing. Now, if you asked someone if you were to ask me how to translate faith from the Hebrew word, what the Hebrew word for faith is, I could give you 5 different words. Because we have so many words, because faith is not something you can put in one sentence. So the first Hebrew word that we're going to work on is emunah, E-M-U-N-A-H. What do we see from emunah? What does faith mean to us with this word? When you touch that place where your soul and the essence of God, the infinite light, are one, is a point that nothing can describe. We can't relate to God. We try, and this is really just blind faith. We acknowledge that there's an infinite light, we acknowledge that there's a Father that's going to help us, and we connect with this Father not knowing where He's going to guide us. It's blind faith and true love. Step number 9, we get to use the 2 bitter herbs, myrrh. We take the ground horseradish and we take the romaine leaf. We put the horseradish in the leaf, we roll it up, and we eat it. Before we eat it, we dip it a little bit in the charoset. Once again, we eat the myrrh to remind us, the bitter herbs, and the romaine lettuce to remind us of the bitterness. But with everything bitter, today we're free. We have to have some sweetness to it. And this is bittersweet, because it's sweet, but it reminds us of the mortar. So we put that together, and we eat it, and I'm telling you, everyone's crying, because we just dip it in the sweetness. We don't smear it on. When I was younger, I did. And it reminds us of that, what the bitterness is. Once again, don't forget where we came from, who we are, and what we're doing, and to continue to break away from Pharaoh. When I say break away from Pharaoh, I mean from the everyday life. The media tells us to do one thing, and we're supposed to lead our own lives and break away from what people think. It's been heard, that Jewish people are the rebels, Jewish people think out of the box. Perhaps this is the reason why. We're trained from a young age to break away from what the world thinks and try our best to focus on what's right. The next part is the sandwich. We take the matzah, we crack it in half, we take more of the romaine lettuce, we take more of the bitter herbs, and we put it in there, and then we dip it in the charoset, the sweet dip that reminds us of that's a bittersweet resemblance. The reason for this is we have to look at it. We take 3 things. We take bitter, we take sweet, and we take matzah, which is cardboard. It's nothingness. And this is our life. There's things that are clearly bitter. There are things that are clearly sweet. And there's things we consider mundane and nothing. But there's no such thing as anything mundane and nothing. So we take everything and bring it together to remind us, once again, what we're doing, what we're striving for, and what we're living for. And not only to be free from oppression of other people, to be free from our own selves. Here's the fun part. Number 11 is the main course. We sit down, we get the fish, we get the chicken soup, the matzo ball soup, we get the meat, and we just sit down and have the dinner meal now. And we sit down in a fashion of royalty, we eat well. Remember that today we're royalty, we came from slaves, and now we're expressing ourselves as if we're royal. In our own homes, in our own right, and all of us have that capability to be royal. If you think it, you are it. It takes a long time to eat, a short time to explain. The 12th step is hidden, tzafon in Hebrew. We take that hidden piece of matzah out, and now we eat it as dessert. It's the last piece of food that's to cross our lips before we go to sleep. And by the way, at this part, it's probably like midnight already. This goes on for a long time. It's the last bit of food to cross our lips. The only thing that's going to cross our lips after that is 2 more glasses of wine. So, we'll just be too tipsy to even realize we're hungry. Why do we put it aside in the beginning and eat it now? Is to remember that this world is full of hidden goodness. And that by eating this, we're reminding ourselves to always look for the hidden. because the hidden is always right in front of ourselves, to take pleasure in the simple little things in life. Step number 13 is we bless. It's grace after meals. We pour the third cup of wine. We say, God, thank you for this wonderful meal you have given us. Thank you for where you have brought us. And we make the blessings on the grace after meals. And we drink the third cup of wine. After that, we have what we call Hallel, praise. It's different verses and different chapters of Psalms that we read aloud and we sing along, praising God and thanking God that us as little humans, as little peons in your mass world, you were able to focus on us, and you have time to focus on every being, on everything, and we realize, and we're thanking you for being able to let us reside in your world and make your world a better place for you to dwell in. Because once again, God didn't create a perfect world, because if he created a perfect world, he wouldn't need humans. And we're thanking him for giving us the opportunity to make this place a better place for him to bring his presence down to us. We also learn that anything that God requests of us to do, he himself also does, of course, in a more spiritual manner. And this part of praise, since we realize that we're here sitting in a lavish setting, there's people outside that don't have such a place to go. So we're also praising God. Thank you for reminding us to open our doors to all who want to come, the same way you have always opened your gates for us to pray to. By praise, we also pour cup number 4. I forgot. And at the end of the praise part, we drink cup number 4, and then we do, last but not least, 15. In Hebrew, it's called nirtza, which means accepted. As I said, some people think we're supposed to be perfect. Well, why did God create such an imperfect world? You know, just look at the media today, and earthquakes here and tsunamis there and all other sorts of things. Why did he create such an imperfect world? Because we're not perfect. We're supposed to do our best. When I was younger, if I could remember the phrase, there was a saying, I can't remember it, but it was something along the lines, I used to say it to my teacher, to be smart. If you always tell me to be perfect, but if nobody's perfect, why should I try? It was something like that. I can't remember it. It'll probably come back to me as soon as I'm done. Then I'll share it with y'all. No. So we now are, after we praise God, we hope that he re-accepts us as he accepted us as his nation 3,300 years ago, and that we're renewing our vows with God. We remember that he took us out. We were brought back to this state of humility, the state of humbleness, and now we hope to God that we're accepted, and that in the future, the next year, we'll be able to serve God in the temple in Jerusalem. That's all.